What's going on, Buff Nation? My name is Isaiah Chavous, your external student body president. Welcome to my new talk show, A Two-Way Street, where creativity meets new frontiers. Let's mask up and go meet our guest. How's it going, Buff Nation? Today's special guest is Chancellor Phil DiStefano. Chancellor, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Isaiah. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you. I know we talk often, but it's good to see you in person.
It's great to see you in person, too, and we're doing some social distancing, got
Yes.
the mask on. That's great.
Yes, we've taken the proper measures to keep us safe, so I'm glad to hear that. So we're going to start with a series of questions that are student-generated, some icebreaker, fun, lighthearted questions, and I think you'll enjoy them.
Okay,
So,
great.
to start, the students want to know, if you could be any animal, what animal would you be?
Well, obviously being a buffalo, that could be one, but really I think it's an eagle. I was walking on campus today and I was thinking of soaring like the eagle in the sky, in a blue Colorado sky, on a beautiful day like today.
So this is an interesting one to me. So if you could know the absolute and total truth to any question, what question would you ask?
Probably what happens after we die.
Yeah,
I think that would be the one I would ask.
I think me too. It'd have to be something related to God or heaven or
Something. Yeah,
something.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's one that nobody knows the answer to.
right. But we all have to face it.
Exactly.
So this is by far the most pressing question of the students. Do you believe cereal is a soup?
Do I really what?
Do you believe cereal is a soup? Why or why not?
No, I don't. I don't think so. It's not a soup. I mean, I love soup, and soup is vegetables and broth and meats, and not cereal.
Yeah. I thought that argument was valid.
Yes.
I don't know. So that wraps up the fun icebreaker questions. We're still
Okay.
going to move into some student-created questions,
Sure.
but addressing more pressing matters on campus and in our community. So, in your opinion, what is the most pressing matter facing CU Boulder?
Well, obviously, we have two right now. One is the COVID-ready campus, and how do we get ready for August 24th when students come back and we start to have in-person hybrid and remote classes. But obviously, a second and as important issue is how we move forward on systemic racist issues. And, given my 8 action items that I put out to the campus in June, how do we all start working together to make sure we can meet those options? So it's not one, but it's really two.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
getting back to campus, but also having the systemic racism issues right at the top.
Absolutely. So let's jump first into COVID-19, if you don't mind, then we'll visit the racial conversation second.
Sure.
So really, what worries you most about this upcoming semester? I've been receiving a lot of worried sentiments from students, and I know parents and faculty and staff are somewhat worried about the plan. What worries you?
Well, obviously, another huge spike like we had in March. The difference, though, is we're going to be much better prepared to deal with the spike of COVID than we were in March. But that worries me the most, and that's why I think it's so important that we follow the rules about wearing masks, the social distancing, those kinds of things, so that we do have a safe and a healthy campus.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with that said, is it realistic for students to assume that they will be in person or doing this hybrid system, be able to access campus for the entirety of the fall semester and potentially the entirety of the year?
Well, first of all, we are going to go to remote after Thanksgiving. So, again, if we're following all the health rules, I believe we can get through the first 3 months of the campus where students are going to be having in-person, hybrid, and remote learning, but living on campus or living close to campus. Then at Thanksgiving, students will leave and we'll do the last 3 weeks by remote. What I don't know yet is how we're going to look at spring semester. And we'll start planning that after the fall semester begins.
Absolutely.
But that's my goal.
Yeah. So, being that there is an anticipation of another wave of COVID, regardless if it does or doesn't happen, assuming that it does happen, what steps will you take to ensure student safety in mitigating this pandemic?
So one of the things that we're doing is we're going to be taking 2 of our dormitories offline so that if students have to be quarantined, which we couldn't do last March, but if students have to be quarantined, isolated, we're going to have 2 dormitories that could serve that purpose. And I think from a health and safety issue, that's extremely important. We're also going to be doing contact tracing, and our students are actually helping to do that this summer. We're looking at individuals who have tested positive, and then whom have they been with, and then how do we contact them and making sure that they get their test. So again, we're going to go through a series of items that we just couldn't do last March, that I think will improve the safety and health of our students on the campus.
Absolutely. So other than dealing with COVID-19, as you touched on earlier, the next pressing matter is the racial inequality, racism, the Black Lives Matter movement, things that are very prevalent right now, not only facing our country and facing our state, but facing our city, community, and school. So, there's been talk recently of a community-oriented policing strategy that would involve accountability for a commission to be implemented to the CU Police Department for transparency purposes. What are your thoughts on that?
So first of all, I think whatever we do, and you use the word transparency, there are 2 issues. One is transparency, and the other is communication. Those 2 are key to anything that we do. I've been very supportive of our new police chief. Chief Chavous has just done an amazing job since she's been here. And now we have a new chief at Boulder PD. And I want the 2 of them, and they have been working together, to really bring some fresh ideas to the table, but involve the CU community as well as the Boulder community. So that means getting our students involved, our faculty and staff involved, and the city of Boulder involved. So yes, I think something like some sort of community action group that would involve all the constituents, internal and external to the campus, would be a good way of communicating, looking at different ways of working together, and solving these issues in a very collaborative way.
So assuming Chief Jokehurst, for example, was open to the idea of having students be involved, faculty potentially, and community members form an organized commission to, let's say, review the internal affairs of an investigative process, would that be something you would be considering?
Yes, and I mean, it's one of the things that I mentioned in my 8 action items, that we want to take a look at all the policies and procedures, not only of CUPD, but to work collaboratively with Boulder PD and Chief Harold. And so I think bringing together, as I said, various constituents, students, faculty, staff, community members, would be the best way of doing it. It goes back to transparency and communication.
Absolutely. So students want to know, how can the university be better at addressing racial inequality?
Well, one is, in one of my 8 action items, I've asked the provost to work with the faculty about how we improve the number of underrepresented faculty members on the campus. I think that's going to be key. And we've done an okay job, but there's much more room for improvement. So the chancellor, the provost, has been working with the deans to start talking about how do we do searches differently when we're searching for faculty. The same thing with students. I've asked our admissions department to really look at different ways of going out and recruiting underrepresented students from not only Colorado, but from around the country. We don't do a very good job of recruiting underrepresented students of color from other states. We need to do a better job of that.
Absolutely. Are you aware of the racial discrimination, hate speech, and just outright racist comments that have been circulating among students and faculty here on campus?
Yes, and whenever I hear about them or anybody on my team hears about them, we refer those to OIEC so that they can do an investigation. And as you know, we've had this discussion before, the line between free speech and hate speech. And we need to make sure that we're investigating whether it's free speech or it's hate speech. Definitely if it's hate speech, we will take immediate action.
Yeah. So there's a statistic that the retention rates of Black and brown students here on this campus is extremely low from the time they enter here as freshmen to the time they graduate. What can be done to increase this retention rate so more Black and brown students do graduate with a degree from this university after beginning?
I think the key issue here, and when it works, when we see it on campus and it's working, graduation rates increase. And that's cohort groups and mentoring. But going back to my previous point, for really solid mentoring, we need to have Black and brown faculty working here at the university to serve as mentors to students coming in. And when students come together as a cohort, together, and work with faculty, they're going to end up graduating. What we don't want is that piece of isolation where students aren't with other students that have a similar culture, a similar look, a similar identity. So those two pieces of cohort grouping and mentoring make the most sense to me.
So as you know, I personally sit on the CCI working group. For those who are watching, the CCI stands for Colorado Correctional Industries, excuse me. And the relationship between CCI and CU Boulder, there are contracts that exist that provide us furniture to this school. What is your opinion on the use of prison labor to supply our university with furniture?
Well, as you and I have discussed before, Isaiah, the one issue is that at this point in time, we have to consider CCI as a vendor for any time that we order furniture. And what I'd like to look at is, if we're going to continue to do that, how do we get a fairer way of compensating CCI? And I don't want it always to be the lowest bid possible. Maybe there's some sort of minimum bid that's higher than what we were doing now, so that it makes sense to go with CCI. But since they are a vendor for anytime we order furniture, if we're going to keep that, I'd like to look at some fair pricing mechanisms that I believe would help our individuals who are incarcerated.
Yeah. And you know, one of the solutions that has come about in the working group that was created by President Mark Kennedy, in which I sit, is the fact that each campus ultimately has the jurisdiction to handle and reallocate that funding to the bidder that they want per project. Are you open to reevaluating and potentially changing the bidder in which you choose for new and upcoming projects?
I'm always open to looking at different ways of doing things and looking at what's best, not only for the university, but what's best for our society as well.
Is there anything special you would like to say to the audience?
Well, number one, I'm so glad we were able to do this. And since we haven't been able to meet, together, it's all been virtually, I've really missed that opportunity to meet with our students. And I look forward to the fall so that we can do it in a more personalized way, maybe without a mask, or if we have to use a mask, that's okay. But
you look cool in it.
But that's what I miss most, is that human interaction that we have with students.
Absolutely. What would you like to say as closing to the CU Boulder students and Buff Nation as a whole?
What I want to say is stay healthy. Looking forward to having you all back in the fall. And of course, go Buffs.
Well, thank you for joining me today, Chancellor. Buff Nation, thank you for watching the first episode of the new talk show, A Two-Way Street. I am your host and external student body president, Isaiah Chavous, and we'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe, social distance, and wear your mask. Good night.
This is the game show, a two-way street. Yeah.